Welcome to That's a Tap in studio episode to preview the UFC Newark 288. Cejudo Sterling. DJ, how you feeling?
CT, good to be there. There's nothing dividing us, right? We're just right next to each other. Here to talk about UFC 288. Obviously, we do our usual online segments, but when it's something special, we come together and we put together something in the studio. So here we go, big card coming up this weekend, a big combat weekend, you could say. We've got Canelo Ryder going at it as well.
Cinco de
Mayo, indeed. We'll touch on obviously the UFC 288 card mainly. We'll touch on some other stuff too, like some surprise announcements that were made today as well by Dana White in terms of changes to other cards. We'll kick off with 288, the return of Triple C.
Yeah, Newark, New Jersey, so not far from New York, obviously. Yeah. But good to see the UFC make their way to New Jersey. The fans out there, salute to you, in the building, and also for this big event. It's not as stacked as it initially was, but a lot of good fights to break down. Previewing, obviously, we should start at the top.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, you can't look past the return of Triple C or King of Cringe, however you like to, call him. A great mixed martial artist, a great mind, a student of the game, making a comeback after 3 years, right? So it's a big card, obviously happening, as you pointed out, in New Jersey, which happens to be home turf for the champion, which is Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling.
Yeah. Right.
So he's obviously defending in home turf against a very popular superstar, right? So we got obviously the bantamweight championship on the line. So starting at the top, crazy fight, man. What do you think? What were your initial reactions when you saw this fight get announced? Because we know there's a slew of contenders in bantamweight. Bantamweight's one of the most happening divisions in the UFC, and we've seen contenders rise again and again. We got another superstar in Sean O'Malley, who's coming off of a win off Peter Yan, waiting in the sidelines, and we've got Corey Sandhagen, who's been ever so impressive. Also, coming off of a win off Corey Sandhagen. Chito Vera, that happened obviously after the announcement. But, the UFC decided to go ahead with Cejudo Sterling. What were your initial reactions, CD?
Initial reactions is I think it's a good storyline, good storylines, but Triple C, the King of Cringe, hasn't been in the game. Been out of the game a while. So my thoughts on that. Ring rust, cage rust.
Unless you're John Jones.
Just comes in. But hey, a champion is still a champion, and you see the image on screen, DJ, the two credentials of these two fighters are definitely at top of the game. Champions alike. Aljo has been, ever since winning against Yan, has been in good form. I think this is going to be his toughest test.
Absolutely.
Me personally, and I'm looking forward to this. I think Cejudo, how do you feel his style is going to... do you feel like this is going to be his biggest challenge?
For Cejudo?
Yeah.
Look, I think Henry Cejudo, if you look past all the smoke screen and look past all the antics, what you have is one of the most talented mixed martial artists on planet Earth, right? You obviously have these gifted athletes, physically, right, where Henry Cejudo is one of them. But what makes him stand apart from, say, the majority of the other fighters is his fight IQ, his ability to adapt, his understanding of the game, and his grind, right? While he has been away from the game, he never really was away. We've seen him, and look, I was looking at the UFC countdown episode that they released. Man, they obviously do a very good job every single time there's a pay-per-view, and sort of watching that, I kind of realized how involved Cejudo, although he's been retired, right? If you recall, the last time we saw him in action was in that very special card, which was, I believe, UFC 249, Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, UFC 249. That was the first card that they came back with after the pandemic with no crowd in attendance. And he fought Dominic Cruz, beat him, and then retired. So that was 3 years ago. So now he's 36, he's coming back. But through that episode, I was able to see how involved he has been with the games. He's been training with some big champions. He's been training with Whaley. He's been training with Figueiredo. He's been training with John Jones, right? You know, coaching them, mentoring them, being around them. Yuri Prochazka, another one. And is Demetrius Johnson, who obviously, you know, they have their own rivalry, and we know what a great legend Demetrius Johnson is and his fight IQ, right? And we've seen him give props about Andrew Cejudo. So it kind of realizes he never has really switched off entirely, right? Yeah. And now I think he's back in training camp, he's getting back in shape. I think we're going to get the best Andrew Cejudo. I think he's coming to create legend. It will be, if he's able to come back and become two-time bantamweight champion, right? Adds to his long list of accolades, man. This guy has won Olympic gold, right? Which you can consider is the peak of all achievements, right? Yeah. Going into the Olympics, competing against the whole world, right? And you're the best in what you do, right? And you've competed against the whole world. And then we have a distinguished list of double champs. Not many, and we've seen a lot of people attempt to do it and not being able to do it. He is one of those who actually accomplished it and then defended both belts as well, if you recall, right? So his achievements are out of this world. And if he's able to come in and then regain the bantamweight title from Aljamain Sterling, who I think is a very tough competitor, tough competition for Andrew Cejudo, I think that just sort of marks him in history as the best bantamweight of all time, right, in MMA. And then if he were to stick to the plan or the script that he's talking about in terms of going after a third belt in the UFC, which has never been attempted before, and he wants to go up and fight Alexander Volkanovski for the 145, man, you know what a banger of a fight that is. I mean, him and Volkanovski are pretty much the same people in terms of skill set and fight IQ, right? I would put Volkanovski up there as one of the best fighters to ever do it, physically gifted, and also like in terms of the grind, the mentality, the IQ. I know that was a long-winded answer, but do I think this is Aljamain Sterling's toughest challenge? That was your question, right? Yeah. Look, I think so. For Aljamain Sterling, this will be a very tough challenge for him. Probably even I mean, it's hard to say the toughest because what he had to overcome after the first Jan fight, there was a lot of controversy. There was a lot of hatred thrown towards him, and he had to go in and prove himself against a guy who, according to everyone, was beating him, and they took the easy way out. So there was a lot he was carrying, and to go in with that pressure and to perform the way he did and come out with a win, I feel like that would have also been a very tough challenge for him. But yeah, definitely up there as one of the toughest challenges. And that's the thing, man. Like, you know, obviously, with Andrew Cejudo, you can talk about his accolades and sort of who he is as a fighter, but we also need to remember Aljamain Sterling is also not a joke. He's also an amazing fighter, right? Like, I mean, he's proven us wrong. What do you think? Like, you know, since that knee incident, right? Do you think Aljamain Sterling's come far since that incident?
I have, yeah, and we'll get to that in my predictions. But he's definitely earned this stature where he's at, and he's on his way to building his big legacy. Obviously, a lot younger. Yeah, Cejudo, but yeah, that's what makes this more fascinating for me. Yeah. We've sort of got a guy that's close to the GOAT, or arguably the GOAT status of the division, and you've got a guy that's on his way there. Yeah. So this is the old guard versus the new guard kind of thing. And on that note, you know, we look at the odds. The odds before
CT, the odd maker. There you go.
I tell everyone here with the Australian market this is, but who do you think
is the favourite? All right, I'm going to go ahead and say Henry Cejudo is going to be the favourite, but I feel like it's not going to be by a large margin.
Oh, I think you've seen it already. Definitely the case. Is millimeters, cents within the two. So you got Cejudo favourite slightly at $1.89. Yeah. And Sterling $1.95.
Oh wow!
So it's literally 6 cent different. So very, very even betting markets at this point. Yeah. So this leads us into how do you think it's going to play out?
Yeah, good question. I didn't see the odds, by the way. I just went based on, usually on a normal day, I would give it to Henry Cejudo as the favourite, but he's got that hiatus from the cage, right? You got to take that, factor that into the consideration. So hence why I said he still could be the favourite, but closer. But predictions, man, it's a tough one, right? Like Aljamain Sterling has been active, right? The Aljamain Sterling today, who holds the champion, is the rightful bantamweight champion, right? There's no doubt now. Like, any doubt that post that knee incident, he was the same guy. He beat him by decision. There were some 10-8 rounds in there too. Like, he cemented himself as that bantamweight champion. Then went out and defended against TJ Dillashaw. Obviously, I know TJ Dillashaw was compromised and all that, but at the end of the day, he agreed to fight, and the fight took place, and that was in October. So now he's coming back to defend it again, which will be his third defense against the great Henry Cejudo. I know you talk a lot about ring rust, and I agree with you. I also feel there are some athletes who are not susceptible to it, and I feel like Henry Cejudo is one of them. I feel like he's a student of the game, right? He never really switched himself off, right? I know, and he is an if you look at it, he's a competitor, right? Even in terms of fighting, like he competes at the highest level, and he wants to come on top of the competition, right? And I think that mindset is what's going to drive Henry Cejudo. I think he will bring his best version in. Bar no injuries, I am predicting Henry Cejudo to regain the bantamweight belt.
Wow. Right? Okay. Yep. Definitely. I made great points, and I agree with a lot of those. Just when you were saying the ring rust, I was thinking when Cejudo first, and I'm not trying to delay my prediction.
Yeah, of course.
But when Cejudo retired, did you feel like it was all a bit of a, not final? Like,
yeah, I did actually.
He sort of always hinted like I might come back. He basically started trash talking the next champ as soon as they became.
I just feel like the whole the retirement probably was stemming from a financial standpoint. I felt like it was more like maybe a leverage or a point to kind of renegotiate the deal, and maybe it didn't move at the pace he expected, and sort of the retirement panned out. And sometimes Dana White can be a bit stubborn too, right? And he'd be like, you know what, I'm not going to give in. Like, if you're retired, you're retired. We remember, like, there were a few interviews where when his name was brought up, this is when the retirement was still new, like maybe 12 months in. Dana still kept saying, he's retired, Henry's retired. We're not going to book a fight, he's retired, And whereas now he's come back and,
And he wasn't that draw card back then, according now he's the contender, pitted up against the champ. You could sort of make a case for, okay, people want to see this now. Because I think they got tired of kind of seeing Triple C dominate. So that you could say, the break has done both sides good. And on that note, I think Cejudo is worthy of favourite. But something in me just feels like Aljamain Sterling is going to continue with his run. Shock some people.
Hey, the odds says it all, right? Like, it's such a close fight. It could go either way. And let's not forget, right? Now, while Cejudo's beaten arguably the GOAT of the flyweight division, which was Demetrius Johnson, it was a very close fight, by the way. And then he beat the again, consensus greatest of all time in Dominic Cruz in the bantamweight division, right? Having said that, Henry Cejudo, he fought Marlon Moraes, who was highly ranked at the time for the Wakem belt when TJ Dillashaw vacated it. We haven't seen him against some of the newer competition, right? The new guard, as you say, right? Like the Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen, Merab, right? Peter Yan, for that matter, right? Chidawero coming up. Like, he's sort of beaten some of the veterans of the game. Like, we haven't really seen him compete against some of these young, hungry guys. Or how would he fare with someone like Merab? We saw his relentless pressure against, Peter Yan, right?
Big Dober,
But here's another interesting factor to consider with this whole fight as well, right? Where is Aljamain Sterling's head at as well, right? Like, what happens? Like, I know he wants that Sean O'Malley fight. Obviously, it's a money fight. It'll bring a lot of attention. And it's clear that the UFC wants to give Sean the next fight because, they're keeping him on ice because they want the winner to fight him. The thing is, he's spoken about not wanting to... Merab has proven beyond doubt that he's ready and he can be next in line. Especially after that performance against Peter Yan. It was a 5-0 shutdown, right? And that was probably the most clearest defeat Peter Yan had ever had in those recent string of defeats.
Yeah.
Most of them could be argued, close decisions, went to the wrong person, whatever. Whereas that one was a clear defeat, right? But you know, Aljo is saying, hey, we're teammates, we're brothers, we're not going to fight. They're both saying the same thing. But he's also saying, I want him to be champion, right? So has Aljo already set his eyes on the 145 division? Is he already thinking about, because you know what, right? The moment you start thinking those kind of things, you know, it does start to impact your performance in your career. It's like a job, man, right? Like, you know, you're looking at your next job, you know, you start to like stop performing at your current one, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like that. Will that impact him as well? So there's a lot of question marks around it, and I think it's a very, very close fight. The odds justify it. I'm just giving the slight edge to Cejudo. I'm glad we're divided on this, because that is the best preview we can give of this fight. Like, it's such a close fight. And they're both proven mixed martial artists.
Definitely, and I think the dynamic, that fact we haven't seen Cejudo recent form is a big thing versus a guy who have seen a clear sample form recently. Makes it more fascinating. But I think it's going to be close. For me, I think it's going to go the distance. That's what I would say. I don't think it's going to be a finish, because technically they're both outstanding, and I think both are hungry. Both are dogs, and they're just gonna survive. How do you see it?
I agree with you. I feel like it'll go the distance. I feel like it definitely will. I also feel like for the majority of it could be a stand-up fight. They're both, you know, one's an accomplished jiu-jitsu practitioner, the other one's a, you know, world-class wrestler. So they obviously have their own, you know, strengths when it goes to the ground. But that we've seen that in the past where we got two strong grapplers when they fight. It tends to be a stand-up game, right? But obviously, out of the two, I would say Andrade Cejudo is more well-rounded.
It is. Look forward to this big main event, and obviously it's going to create more waves in this division once we know the result and what's to come in the future aspirations. But the co-main event, huge. What are your thoughts?
I'm just going to say, like, the BMF is fighting in this. You know what I mean? 'Cause, man, since January, it's what is May right now. Burns has fought 3 times. He fought in January in Rio.
Did not realise.
And he fought Neil Magny, and he fought Jourdain Masvidal last month, right? And now he's fighting, you know, Belal Muhammad, who's another killer, and it's a short notice fight. Obviously, the big fight. Look, to be honest, I know you said this card's not as stacked as you know, some of the other cards, and look, I did get the same feeling, because I was looking forward to the Darius Oliveira fight. It's a big fight, a lot of title implications, but at the same time, it's such an exciting fight, right? Because if Benil were to beat Oliveira, there is no denying that he deserves the title next. And then also on the other side, Oliveira, man, you know how we feel about Oliveira, one of the most exciting fighters in that division, all of the UFC. So I mean, when that short period when he was the champ was the most exciting the lightweight division have been in terms of the fights and the champions, the caliber of the championship fights. But that fell through, unfortunately. Thankfully rebooked for the next one, which is UFC289, which has had a lot of changes, to be honest, and we'll talk about that later. But guess who comes in and steps in to save the day? Gilbert Burns, Durinho Burns. He steps in and he calls out Belal Muhammad and says, hey, let's do this. Let's do co-main. And, you know, not just that, and props to both guys for this. Both of them say, you know, not just co-main, you know, we're not going to scrape bite. Let's do 5 rounds. You know what? If we want to fight for championship, let's show the world who's ready, right? Man, I reckon it's going to be a banger of a fight. I think Belal Muhammad is criminally underrated, right? I also think Gilbert Burns has improved so much since he already was, you know, really good. And then since that first Usman fight for the championship, he's improved leaps and bounds. I reckon he's a lot more calculated. And I think a win here solidifies himself as the next contender, right? Unless the unicorn of the division, which is Hamzat, decides to step in, and then he obviously you know, gets that precedence for the title, which I don't see happening. And I saw Usman call out Hamzat. That was quite exciting as well. It was quite interesting. But what looks like welterweight's sort of starting to gather steam, right? Before it was more, we're not sure what's happening with the championship fight, but this is a big title implication fight. If Belal Muhammad beats Gilbert Burns, he would finally have that big name that he hasn't been able to. You know what I mean? and you'd be able to lay claim to I've beaten a top contender, right?
Yeah.
And now I've got this 10-fight win streak. I've beaten a top contender. I have nothing else to do. Give me that title, right? That's it. So clearly, like I would say, this is clearly a number one contender fight, right? Man, I'm super excited, man. I'm super excited. Much respect to both fighters, Belal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns, for making this happen. Especially for Gilbert Burns, like he's just beaten George Masvidal, right? It could there can be and there could be an argument. He could have sat out and maybe still got the title fight, right? He's willing to put that record, on the line and risk it, to give the fans what they want, and then also, in his words, like, I don't want to stay dormant. I just want to stay active.
Yeah.
Bring it on. If I can't beat the best guys, then I shouldn't be fighting for a championship. So, great mindset. And let's also not forget, Belal Muhammad's coming straight off Ramadan after fasting and all his religious commitments. So he's also agreeing to, let's do 5 rounds, right?
Time.
So but can I ask you this question?
Yeah.
Would you have preferred this same matchup with a proper training camp for the both of them?
I would have, definitely.
Yeah.
I would have. But having said that, that's what makes this sport so good. The fact is, guys can just be so hungry, fought recently, and a string off a couple huge wins, like Burns has, and Muhammad also agreeing to the fight, short notice, not able to game plan for long for your opponent, and that's what makes this sport so good. So it makes for even more intriguing viewing. Now, the odds, who's favourite for this one?
What are the odds? Favourite? Look, I'll have to go with Gilbert Burns being the favourite, I would say.
Yep, he is. But it's also close.
It is close, okay.
Not as close as the other one. But $1.78 Burns to $2.08. 8 cents. So very close between the two. Obviously, I think Burns' hot form, like in the eyes of the punters, might just have him, But like you said, criminally underrated. Belal Muhammad, what's it going to take for him to get respect? If he finishes Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, I think that's what he needs. I think this is what he needs to gain the respect of the wider MMA community, right? Because he still, unfortunately, hasn't had that big name under his belt. Right? He fought Edwards, and look, to be honest, that fight wasn't going his way. And then obviously the unfortunate eye poke happened, and we know everything that happened afterwards.
But he's vocal on Twitter and social media. He's always crying out for why am I left out?
Yeah, I mean, he did beat Wonderboy, right? It was, but I think by far his best performance was his most recent one in October in Abu Dhabi when he fought Sean Brady, who was undefeated. Is it Sean Brady? Yeah. He was undefeated at the time. He's fighting Jack Della Maddalena. So he was undefeated at the time. A strong grappler himself, and obviously was completely dominated by Belal Muhammad. Let's not forget that was also when Khabib cornered Belal Muhammad, and he was kind of Khabib was sort of acting as a consulting capacity in that fight camp, which showed a completely different Belal Muhammad, right? Up until then, his sort of fighting style was very similar in all his fights, which is a very grappling heavy style, and especially I think the Wonderboy fight wasn't as well received by the MMA fans, right, and didn't help his cause because obviously it was sort of stale in terms of excitement. However, it was dominant, right? I think this, if he were to secure a win, this catapults him into that. Okay, now we can see that, right? You've beaten Gilbert Burns, right, who's literally fought pretty much almost everyone in the top of the division, right? Because those rankings, he fought Hamzat when Hamzat, no one was willing to fight Hamzat, right?
Two guys that are not scared, DJ, and I will go attack you head on. So who have you got?
Oh, look, I'll have to agree with the odd makers, man. And I'll tell you why, because I think strength of schedule, right? The last time Belal Muhammad fought was in October, and then Gilbert Burns fought last month. Now this could, cost him, but I feel like it's actually going to enhance it because while it was a full 3-round fight, which went the distance with Jorge Masvidal, I do feel he didn't take too much damage, showed his conditioning. Gilbert Burns is naturally a well-conditioned athlete, right?
Yeah.
And he's been active constantly, so it's not going to be too much of a shock for him to get back into fight camp, right? And he didn't have to really switch off too much from that fight camp mentality. And also the opponents, if you look at the opponents they both fought, they both fought Wonder Boy. That's probably the only common opponent. Other than that, if you look at the opponents Gilbert's faced, he's faced a little bit more higher ranked opponents compared to Bilal Muhammad, and I feel like that'll play in his favor too.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns also holds some championship experience, right? He's fought for a belt, and he's fought under some big lights. He's fought in enemy territory. He's done all these things, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like his activity and his strength of schedule makes me want to give him the edge. So I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I got to agree. I'm agreeing with you on this one. Gilbert, ever since I seen him, it was a while back. I think when he first fought Usman, I think for the title, contended, and obviously his aggression. He's an exciting fighter. I just became a fan.
Yeah.
And he's gotten better in that. He's gotten better.
Yeah.
And I think he is in a point now where he's tough to stop. He's like an avalanche, a snowball.
Got momentum, yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, other than Kamaru Usman, who he lost to, but in the first round, he had Usman in trouble. He had him wobbled and all that. Obviously, then, unfortunately, Usman, pound for pound, great at the time, kind of found his rhythm and started putting it on Gilbert. But outside of that, the only other loss he's had is to Hamzat, right? Yeah. There's a lot of argument out there that Gilbert actually won the fight. I think we were speaking about, and I actually was thinking that Gilbert Burns won that fight, right? So, look, he's had a whirlwind of a career, and he's had some crazy, exciting fight. Very, very exciting fighter. Man, whatever happens in that fight, right? I think we're in for a treat, right?
So good.
But I was going to say, whenever we're aligned with our predictions, it usually goes the other way. Have you noticed that?
More sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I'm trying to jinx you, but right, yeah. What else are we going to talk about?
Hey, let me tell you another fight that's quite exciting for me, or I'm excited. Is for the return of Kron Gracie. Right, he's opening the main card. The Gracie name, man, that's MMA royalty, right? He's fighting in the card. He's opening the main card. That'll be great. I think he's fighting Charles Jourdain, isn't he?
Yeah, Jourdain.
So he's fighting Charles Jourdain. And Charles Jourdain is another very exciting fighter, man. I just feel like, I don't know, it could be wrong, but I feel like it's a terrible matchup for Kron Gracie. Yeah. Obviously, Kron Gracie comes from Nate Diaz's fight camp.
Yeah.
Right? He's a very grappling heavy fighter. The last time he fought Cub Swanson kind of exposed him in that
he did,
striking exchanges. So hopefully he's had sufficient time to go back and sort of re-look at that and up that arsenal. Yeah. But we got Kron Gracie versus Charles Jourdain, a banger of an opening main card opener and big name value too. And I can see you peeping out the odds. Give us a good CT. What does it say?
Yeah, so Kron Gracie is the outsider at 256 with Jourdain favourite $1.50. So quite a big favourite for Jourdain.
Jourdain is favourite.
A popular fighter, and really looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
But we can't gloss over Jessica Andrade.
Man.
Jessica
Andrade
against Yan. Xiaonan Yan.
So great fight again. I think women's strawweight division, right? That division on fire at the moment. I know Jessica Andrade took a short notice fight against Erin Blanchfield and obviously lost that fight. But now she's got a proper fight camp, right? And whenever she's explosive and she's on it, she just lays it on her opponent, right? We saw what she did to Royce Namajunas, right? We've seen her, knockout like Carolina, all these kind of things. So again, another exciting fight, right? One of those fighters that I really look forward to, watch fight. Xiaonan's no joke either, man. Like she's a sniper on the feet. So I'd love to see how that plays out, right? I mean, obviously Andrade being a big name, an emphatic win could land us straight back in that title picture, right? And then Xiaonan, they already have a big market down there with Wei Li being champ, so they might this could excite them even more as well. So
Yeah.
look, that's a great fight too. What else do we have up there?
That's the third fight, by the way. Yeah, then Gracie. Then we've got the feature prelim.
Yeah.
Drew Dober.
Man, exciting.
Versus Frevola.
Matt Frevola.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drew Dober, whenever he fights, and I think we were talking off air, man. Again,
Excitement.
just brings the excitement, man. Like, and this guy's
He
like,
could be losing, and then suddenly he wins.
I just remember the Terence McKinney fight, and then the
last one,
Bobby Green one, right?
Yeah.
Like, Bobby was kind of putting it on him, and then he comes
Green.
back and
Got King hit.
yeah, he knocked him out, cleaned him up. Drew Dober, man, again, like lightweight. If he was any other division, or if it was a leaner division, he would be probably higher ranked after what he's done. But we know what sort of a division that is. It's a deep division, and he fights in that division. Heavy kickboxing style, but brings the excitement. Again, great card to finish the prelims, the feature prelim.
Yeah,
nice one.
Yeah, I feel like this could be bumped up, quite possibly. Just the odds I've got. It's the fourth. It's the fifth fight.
Yeah.
In the list, so we don't yet know. We've got Devin Clark, obviously, versus Kennedy Nechuwu.
Yeah, Kennedy. Yeah. And hey, Chaos Williams is fighting in this card as well.
Yeah, Rolando Bedoya.
Yeah, and then Evlov is in the main card. I call that the cursed matchup because obviously originally it was meant to be, I believe, Bryce Mitchell and Pierce. Yeah. And then it got replaced with Bryce Mitchell and Evlov, and now Bryce Mitchell's pulled out due to injury, and then now someone else has stepped in.
I don't know if that's fallen off or
it's not in there.
It's not on
maybe
here.
It fell off.
But maybe the odds are suspended at the moment.
Could be, yeah.
We'll update people in the comment section
if it is,
yeah, just so we can get accurate info out here. But overall, like this card is two excellent co-main and main event. It's going to be a fun event, and like a lot of ramifications for divisions.
Like a lot of excitement as well. Like if you look at what's next, there's so many things that become exciting if Henry Cejudo wins. All of a sudden, we could see Dwali Shively fight for the title. We could see Sean O'Malley fighting Henry Cejudo for the title. They've had some back and forth in the past, right? It's a new matchup for Corey Sandhagen. Right, like he obviously lost to Sterling previously, and if Sterling wins, then you obviously will see that O'Malley fight regardless, and then we might see him move up to. I mean, Cejudo's talking about going up to 145. When does he plan to do that? Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things there. Cormain, pretty much solidifies whoever the winner is as a number one contender. Definitely an exciting card. I'll be tuning in to watch this, right? But big weekend though, right? Like we got Canelo fighting as well.
Yeah,
Ryder, Cinco de Mayo weekend, and that'll be a whole festival, man. Mexico, the arena down there in Mexico is going to be filled up.
How many UFC champs have they got? Yair, they've got
I think
what's his name, Moreno.
Yeah,
like female. There's a female.
Yeah, Grasso
champ now.
Yeah, Grasso, strawweight champ, who beat one of the greatest in Valentina Shevchenko. I've been there to agree to it as well. He said, look, I think this is one of those things where we messed up, right? We were lined up to, have a great event there. We have, 3 champs at the moment. Brandon Moreno, Alex Grasso, and the interim champ, Yair Rodriguez. But look,
soon it'll happen.
It could,
Yair has just got to beat Bulk, he's got to,
You say it as if it's like going to church on a Sunday. It's no easy task. But yeah, look, I think what's her name? Shevchenko will probably rematch Grasso as well. Okay. Moreno's fighting a guy who's beaten him twice in Pantoja as well. But hopefully, look, if they all retain their titles, then obviously definitely a case for UFC Mexico. Let's not forget, like Irene Aldana just got slotted in to face Amanda Nunes, another Mexican. Right. So if Aldana were to win, and Aldana's no joke either.
Quadruple.
Yeah. So it kind of further solidifies it. But let's see, man. Yeah, pretty exciting weekend of fights. I'm also looking forward to the Canelo fight as well. And obviously, I feel like there won't be a clash. we might be able to catch both.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about it in our weekly roundup,
Yep.
MMA and boxing,
Yep.
next week, together with the recap of the UFC 288 as we head towards the big international fight week card, which is going to blow our minds with Aussie after Aussie.
Yeah, I know, man. Well, hey, how cool is this? The International Fight Week is headlined by our very own Alexander Volkanovski. No jokes, right?
Yeah.
But there is a card before that, which is
There
the
is,
UFC
yeah.
Canada.
Canada,
We got Aldana.
Vancouver,
Which is again, I feel like sometimes the UFC misses certain things. Like Charles Jourdain is a Canadian. Could have very well fought in that card, right?
I know, right? They're trying to do a lot of things, but the talk is that if Whittaker is successful, they're trying to line up Adesanya Whittaker
in Australia,
in Sydney, Australia, as the main event.
No, Sparks Arena is in New Zealand.
That's a tap. Will be on scene.
We will be, yeah. CT might even be inside the cage.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
You never know. We'll be here, but you don't want to miss a thing. So like, subscribe, tell a friend, join the conversation, comment section. Can't wait to bring the weekly roundup. Again, talk about all the things. We've got the Francis Ngannou, right as we uploaded the last episode.
Yeah.
More news came out from Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, mate. Wanted to quickly touch on that. So the latest is that he is most likely to sign with the PFL.
Okay.
Right. So there's a lot of drama going on with what happened behind the scenes with the one championship president. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of
trying to get the upper hand.
Yeah.
They leaked some info. To make him look worse.
I don't feel like the fact that Francis Ngannou hasn't bothered to really come out and sort of clarify anything shows that, hey, look, I'm not bothered. Say whatever you want, right? Like, let me make this big announcement and it'll come and I'll sort these things out, right? But hey, I think we sort of predicted that the PFL would be the one securing him. Okay. Because
how likely is it? You think?
It's still again rumored. There's nothing confirmed. But one of the things that always sort of makes me believe in that is because Jake Paul is a big believer and a fan of Francis Ngannou. Even in this whole drama that's going on at the moment, Jake Paul's actually come out and come in support of Francis Ngannou, right? So I think Francis Ngannou probably feels most comfortable there, and I think it gives him that platform that he requires.
PFL, yeah.
I mean,
boxing and MMA.
Yeah, because one championship is a predominantly, I know they broadcast it everywhere, but it's more a Asian centered, fight organization. That's where most of their fights take place in Singapore, around there. So Francis Ngannou is more of a global star, right? Yeah. So I think, and especially with him having that one shot KO power, it just is not best utilized in that model. I feel, you know what I mean? True, I think both PFL and Francis Ngannou will benefit from each other if that were to go through. But hey, the guesses are out, man. Like whether it'll be a boxing fight or an MMA fight to begin with, we don't know.
Yeah, obviously, we'll be talking about the Nate Diaz Paul smoke that's about to go down, but you don't want to miss it. So join in on the weekly roundup, and for this episode and the recap of 288, the preview. Of the 288, getting ahead of ourselves.
Getting ahead. He's so excited. He's excited.
I cannot wait. Aljo Funk Sterling versus Triple C, King of Cringe, Cejudo, and talk to you soon for this episode on That's a Tap.
That's a wrap, guys. That's a wrap. We'll catch you in the next one, all right?
Yep, peace.